My name is Spencer Coffman with Social Media Ministries, and this is Dave Kahle with Kahle Way Sales Systems. Dave is a business-to-business sales expert and a Christian business thought leader. Great to have you here, Dave. I've really enjoyed this conversation so far. I encourage all you viewers to check out in a card our previous videos because they will be very insightful to you. Dave, we got another question for you. Are there biblical principles that tell us how to run a business?
Oh, sure. Yeah. So, of course there are. And there are, how do I want to say this? So there are basic big biblical principles, but more important is the individual application. And so the application is where the rubber hits the road, is where we come into contact with conflicts for some of the biblical principles. Like, for example, integrity. Integrity is a biblical principle. Everyone knows that. But it's one thing to say that, and intellectually easy to understand. It's another thing to work it out in your life in the middle of conflict and temptation and stuff like that. So are there biblical principles? Yes, there are. And there's books out there. We like, I pretty regularly write a column called Blessed for Success for a publication, and we send biblical messages every couple of weeks on the biblical impact on businesses. We call it building biblical businesses.
And how can someone get that?
Just go to my website, davekahle.com. It's right on the front page. You can sign up for it right there. It's all free. So davekahle.com, sign up for the easing. And we have one for salespeople, one for sales leaders, and one for Christian business people. Wow. So and we reveal and kind of expose and talk about the application of biblical principles. So yep. And there are books out there. Just an acquaintance of mine just published a new book on just that very thing, biblical principles of business. And there's been several books out there. And just go Google biblical business principles, and I'm sure you'll find sources.
Mm-hmm. And so a lot of these principles in the Bible, such as like the 10 Commandments, don't lying or coveting, obviously those are principles of just morality or commandments that we can apply in business. But are there any that come to mind that are just specifically like business related? Not, I mean, like you could kind of say, don't rip someone off, don't overcharge or different things, like you brought up integrity. But is there anything that just sticks out that is completely like business operational?
I think two things come to mind right off the top of my head. One is to invest and grow wealth. And we talked earlier about the parable of the bags of gold. And the master went away, gave servants the responsibility to take care of his assets. And when they came back, the servants who had increased the wealth were rewarded with more and also closer relationship with the master. And those who didn't, I mean, the one who didn't was punished. So we have a biblical principle there that's a business principle, and that is you ought to try to make it grow. Whatever it is that you have, you ought to try to make it grow, and if that's wealth, and so it is. So that's what. Here's another one. It's a little more subtle, but there are at least 3 examples in the New Testament, in the book of Acts, where a business person converted to Christ, and his whole household followed suit and converted to Christ at the same time. Now let's just stop. Of course, Lydia is one. But there are several examples of that. Just stop a minute and think about that. So let's take Lydia. So here's an example. She's a business owner. She has a household, which is a family business that includes family and slaves and servants and employees. And the Bible said she was converted, and her whole household followed her. Now, stop a minute and think. What kind of a relationship must she had as the business owner with her employees and servants and so on, such that they would say, Lydia, if you do it, we're doing it too.
Yeah.
Whatever you do, we're going to do. What
such loyalty
and trust and respect. And And you just think of what would it take? Can you imagine if you're a small business person today, you got 10 employees, something like that. You decide to convert to Christ and everybody else is, but since you did, we will too. That's
And
enough
not
for
only
us. That's all we
them,
need.
yeah, but those employees, those servants, those slaves, they probably had families, some of them. And if Lydia converted and they trusted her so much, and let's not forget, she was a non-Christian.
Exactly.
So clearly she had a moral compass or something was pushing
Yes.
her, because if she was a terrible person, they would
Yeah.
have been like, no way, we're not doing anything you say. We're
Yeah.
just here for the paycheck.
Right.
But she wasn't. So she converted. They all converted, but then they must have shared it with their families too.
Of course.
So what a
Yeah.
powerful, just that one instance.
Yeah.
Um, it
So
really kind of
there's a biblical
subtle, but
principle. That's a big, it's a
right.
little more subtle. You got to dig it out. But there's a biblical principle about culture, a corporate
Mhm.
culture in a business, about the relationship between the owner and employees.
Yeah,
So yeah,
right. You could take a lot of extrapolation on
yes,
that situation to pull out what type of a dynamic did she create in order to foster that culture, that loyalty, the trust. That's exactly how people should run businesses today.
yeah, yeah. You got time for one more? Can I give
Yeah,
you one
yeah.
more? Okay,
Give me
so
another one.
yeah, okay. So this is kind of interesting. Sometimes, just a little tiny verse that we just pass over as such meaning.
Yeah.
So, there's a story of Abraham and Lot, and Lot was captured. And
Mhm.
Genesis says, so Abraham gathered 318 trained men who had been born in his household and went after Lot.
And rescued them.
Stop a minute. Wait a minute. 318
Yeah.
trained men who had been born in his household. Couple things here. How big was his household?
Obviously bigger than 318. Wow.
Well, you think of, okay, that's trained men. How about the untrained men? They're
Yeah.
too old, too young. What about brothers, sisters, mothers, fathers?
Mm. And the
Clearly,
women, the children.
exactly. So clearly,
Wow.
his household was in the thousands. But but when the situation came, he had 318 trained men. In other words, he had trained them. You can imagine with 318, I mean, he probably had trainers, he probably had a regime, he
Right.
probably had weapons. It was a big deal to get
Somebody
318
making the
trained men.
weapons.
All of that,
Yeah.
he prepared for the eventuality. He was prepared.
Mhm.
So when the time came for Lot to go after Lot, he just gathered what he had already prepared. There's a
Mhm.
principle in there, preparation for contingencies.
Yeah.
It's a biblical principle.
It is. And again, it's a subtle one. How many times have we read over those verses and not
Yeah,
thought 318? What a specific number, number one.
yeah,
And the fact that he had 318, again, the loyalty, the trust,
yeah,
the that said, I'll help you and
yeah.
rescue your nephew, who, let's not forget about their dynamic. It wasn't like they were the best of friends. There was a
Right.
lot of
That's
argument
right.
going on
Yeah,
between
right. That's
Abraham
right.
and Lot. It
Yeah.
was almost like, fine, we're glad he's gone. But yet 318
Yeah.
came to his rescue
Yeah.
with out of not out of loyalty to Lot, but
Right.
out of loyalty to Abraham.
Right.
And so, like you said, what a great principle if we could run a business
Yeah.
having that type of a mentality.
Yeah.
So cool. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah.